Today is the day to celebrate a historic accomplishment in WWE history. Roman Reigns, your undisputed WWE Universal Heavyweight Champion, stands at the apex of sports entertainment.
WWE isn't just body slams and smack talk. It's straight up dominating YouTube right now. With sold out arenas, sky high revenue, and a massive $5 billion Netflix deal on the table, they're leaving every traditional sports league in the dust. So, how did a bunch of jacked up dudes in tight pants fake fighting become a global empire? Welcome to the wild, over the top world of pro wrestling. This is how WWE broke YouTube. Let's dive in. Professional wrestling really is a worldwide phenomenon, with millions of fans glued to the drama, the rivalries, and the wild athleticism week after week. Whether it's WWE, AEW, NJPW, or one of the many indie circuits, wrestling has built a global fan base that's all in on the action. But if you rewind back in time, wrestling didn't always look like this. Its roots go way back. We're talking ancient Greece, carnival circuits, and old-school grappling matches. What we see today is the result of decades of evolution where showmanship start to mix with athletic competition, eventually morphing into the flashy, over-the-top spectacle we know and love. Now, here's the big elephant in the ring. Is it real? Well, yes and no. The results of the matches? Totally scripted. Writers and producers usually decide who wins and how the story unfolds. But the bumps, the physical grind, the insane stunts and slams, that stuff is very real and often painful. Wrestlers train like elite athletes, and many put their bodies on the line every time they step between the ropes. Injuries are common, and behind all the glam and pyrotechnics is some serious physical commitment. The drama might be written, but the dedication, 100% legit. Yep, the punches, slams, and suplexes you see in pro wrestling are real enough in terms of physicality, but the outcome, that's usually been decided way before the bell rings. For decades, wrestling promoters kept up the whole act, trying to convince fans that everything was 100% real. This was part of what's called Kayfabe, an industry term for keeping up the illusion that it was all legit, like a live-action drama with body slams. But in 1989, the big boss of WWE himself, Vince McMahon, pulled back the curtain. He admitted that wrestling was scripted entertainment, not an actual competitive sport, confirming what a lot of fans had already suspected. That moment kinda changed the game. Instead of pretending it was a straight-up sport, wrestling was now openly acknowledged as sports entertainment, a mix of athleticism, storytelling, and over-the-top characters. Since then, the show's embraced its dramatic roots even more, and honestly, that's part of the charm. It's like a live-action soap opera with body slams and steel chairs. Even though pro wrestling is choreographed and performers are trained to protect each other, accidents still happen, and they can be brutal. These athletes put their bodies through crazy stress night after night, despite rehearsals, safety gear, and years of experience. All it takes is one slip, one mistimed move, or one bad landing, and suddenly you're dealing with torn ligaments, concussions, broken bones, or worse. Some wrestlers even wrestle through injuries because of the pressure to deliver a great show or keep their spot on the card. And let's be real, even when everything goes right, getting slammed onto a mat, which, by the way, is not a soft mattress, is basically wood and steel covered by a thin layer of padding, still hurts like hell. So, while they're not fighting for real, the physical toll is very real, and mad respect goes to these performers who keep pushing through the pain to entertain the fans. Every wrestling promotion, big or small, has an owner or top boss who calls the shots, and when it comes to who wins or loses, that decision is usually in their hands. In the bigger leagues like WWE or AEW, they've got a whole team of writers, producers, and bookers, basically the folks who plan out storylines and matches, but at the end of the day, the boss has final say. In WWE's case, for years, that was Vince McMahon. He was famous for micromanaging every little detail, from match outcomes to how a wrestler sneezed backstage. In AEW, it's Tony Khan who plays that top role. Even though these guys listen to ideas from creative teams, they're ultimately the ones who decide who gets pushed, who wins titles, and where the storylines go. While it might look spontaneous in the ring, what you're seeing is usually the result of a lot of behind-the-scenes decision-making. Wrestling used to be a legit competitive sport way back in the day. We're talking catch wrestling and grappling matches that could go hours long. People were into it, but over time, audiences started losing interest because the matches were dragging on and often looked the same, kind of like watching the same chess game over and over. That's when promoters got creative. Instead of letting matches play out naturally, which could be slow or unpredictable, they started scripting the outcomes and adding more drama to keep people hooked. And boom, wrestling started shifting from a straight-up sport into more of a show. Wrestlers who were once focused purely on technique began developing flashy personalities, catchy catchphrases, over-the-top outfits, and wild entrances to stand out. Think of it like turning a skilled athlete into a rock star with muscles. That's how we ended up with legends like Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan, and The Rock, characters just as famous for their charisma as their in-ring moves. Modern wrestling is less about who's the best fighter and more about who can entertain the crowd. It's part athleticism, part soap opera, and part stunt show, and fans love it for all those reasons. Some promotions, like Japan's NJPW, are all about that in-ring skill. Super technical, hard-hitting, high-respect matches that feel more like real fights. Meanwhile, companies like WWE, they've historically leaned into the larger-than-life characters, guys with massive muscles, big personalities, and cinematic entrances. Think The Undertaker rising from a coffin, or John Cena with theme music and fireworks. No matter the style, the big goal is always the same: make the crowd care. If fans are chanting your name, buying your merch, or showing up to see what you'll do next, you're getting that big push, baby. That's how someone becomes the guy or gal. It's not just about skill, it's about buzz. And honestly, it makes sense why wrestling was once even bigger than football in certain places. Football is awesome, sure, but wrestling gives you heroes, villains, betrayal, triumph, heartbreak, all in one night. It's sports meets soap opera meets stunt show. And when it's done right, it's pure magic. Fans don't just watch a match, they get invested in the story. That's a level of connection you don't always get when your team just loses 1-0. It's scripted, but it's emotionally real for the people who live and breathe it. That whole concept of kayfabe was genius in its own wild way. It was like this unspoken agreement between the wrestlers and the audience. We know this isn't real, but let's pretend it is, because it's way more fun that way. For decades, wrestlers lived their characters 24/7 in and out of the ring. If a wrestler was a villain on TV, he stayed a villain in public. No breaking character, no tweeting behind the scenes stuff. It created this totally immersive world where fans could suspend disbelief and fully dive into the drama, like watching a live-action soap opera mixed with a Marvel movie and a UFC fight. The fiction actually became its biggest flex. Since they weren't bound by real-life limitations, they could go wild with the storytelling. Brothers feuding, surprise betrayals, supernatural powers, career-ending injuries that magically heal by the next pay-per-view. It was unpredictable in the best way. Traditional sports can only offer so much narrative. A team wins or loses. Maybe there's a comeback or a scandal. But wrestling, you can have a guy get buried alive and come back next week like nothing happened. You can have exploding rings, custody of a child on a ladder match, or even someone coming back from retirement because of revenge. It's that blend of physicality, theater, emotion, and absurdity that made wrestling bigger than life. Live, loud, and full of hype. The action only happens once. The stunts are insanely athletic, and honestly, the crowd goes harder than when Messi pulls off a trick shot. Pro wrestling isn't trying to be real sports, it's playing its own strengths: over-the-top drama, killer athleticism, and unforgettable storytelling. And that's why WWE dominates YouTube, not just by being scripted, but because of it. Smash that like, hit subscribe, and drop a comment with your fave WWE moment.